Darren, you look great in that weird looking tie. He shuts the video off.
That's the impact you have, Joe.
Oh, look, now he's trying to come back. Hey, Carrie.
How you doing, sir?
Good. Hey, Samantha, do I still have to read this whole public comment narrative?
You do not have to read the whole thing, but you do have to read the phone number and the instructions on how to call in at least once. So just like
That is the whole thing.
No, you don't have to do it word for word.
Governor, Lauren is ready to go if you are, sir.
Are you ready, Brett?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, we'll get started then. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll call to order the State of Nevada, Nevada Commission on Homeland Security meeting scheduled for today, February 4th, 2025 at 1 p.m. And we'll kick it off with the roll call. So Lauren?
Lauren Gorsk for the record. Governor Joe Lombardo.
Present.
Sheriff Kevin McMahill. Sheriff Darren Balaam.
Present.
Colonel Kyle Sorfolio. Colonel Sorfolio, can you hear us?
I can see you acknowledge.
We're gonna need to hear from him verbally.
Got it. Present.
Thank you.
First time
Thank
you.
you.
Spencer Evans.
Lauren, before you continue, if somebody has an open mic, can you please mute yourself? It's providing significant feedback. There you go. Thank you. Go ahead, Lauren.
You. Todd Fasulo.
Present.
Mitchell Fox.
Present.
Chief Fernando Gray.
Present.
Dr. Ikram Khan. Richard Perkins.
Here.
Harriet Vegas. George Tagliati.
Present.
Rosemary Vasilius.
Here.
Thank you. Patricia Wade.
Present. Present.
Bill Welch.
Present.
Karen Burke.
Present.
Skip Daly. Chris Ibsen. Chris, I saw you on. Can you hear us?
This is George Tagliati. I don't know if you heard me. I'm present as well.
Yes, sir. I got you.
This is Chris Ibsen. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I can. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
PK O'Neill. Adam Miller.
Present.
Brett Thompson.
Present.
Sam Laddick.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 2, first opportunity for public comment. First public comment is limited to comments on the items on the agenda. No action may be taken on a matter raised under public comment period unless the matter itself has been specifically included on as an agenda item, as an action item. Public comments may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the chair. I will so impose a 3-minute time limit. And for the first awareness, the phone number to call in, if you need to do it over the phone, is 1-669-219-2599. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, please enter 202-331-8963, then press the number symbol. And subsequently, you'll be walked through it as you get into the system. So do we have any public comment there at DEM?
The public comment, DM, sir.
Do we have anybody else on the line for public comment?
Lauren Borst, for the record, there's no one online, sir.
So Samantha, I'm not aware, where was the meeting posted? What other location? Do I have to identify another location?
Nope, I think as long as you've requested everybody on the platform and on the phone, you should be covered.
Okay. Okay, anybody on the platform requesting to make public comment? And we'll give it a couple more seconds because of the YouTube stream. And Lauren, let me know if anybody pops up on the YouTube stream.
Not seeing anyone, sir.
Okay, we'll close the first opportunity for public comment, move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes for discussion and or possible action. Do any members have any questions or concerns on the meeting minutes? And these are the meeting minutes from December 16th, 2024. I'm not hearing any concerns. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved. That's Mitch Fox.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Who?
This is Fernando Gray. I second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion for approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any against, nay? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, statewide national incident management system, also known as NIMS compliance report, informational only. Colonel Constant.
Good afternoon, Governor. Good afternoon, Commission. The report is included with your packet. All I have to report at this time is we had 8,027 participants through the different various courses that FEMA offers. That is approximately 2,000 more than we had in the prior quarter. Cannot identify a reason why it was increased by 2,000, but a significant increase in the quarter. And report, sir.
Brett, what are those numbers you're providing?
So there's a memorandum that I included, which has the different types of courses that we track. It includes FEMA independent study courses, which is generally the vast majority of the courses, ICS 300 and 400 in-person courses, as well as.
I understand. I didn't know what you were alluding to on the previous numbers. You said you didn't understand the difference.
Yes, sir. So last quarter, there was approximately 6,000 and change that participated in the courses. And in the fourth quarter of 2024, there were 8,027.
Okay. Any questions from any members on the NIMS report? All right, hearing none, we will close agenda item number 4, move to agenda item number 5, report on fuel pipeline loss of power in Southern Nevada, discussion only. Did Billy Samuels chime in yet?
I'm here, sir.
Okay, for the record, let him know that he is present. Go ahead, Billy.
Governor, with your permission, if it's okay, Chief Compton was going to start, and I was going to cover any additional things going forth on the Southern Nevada side, if you're good with that, sir.
Okay, do we also have JJ present?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. Go ahead, Chief.
Roger, sir. So a quick overview of how this played out. So on Wednesday, the 8th of January, the Division of Emergency Management was notified that the Colton facility, which powers the pumps that push fuel uphill through the Kinder Morgan pipeline to Las Vegas, would be out for approximately 1 day. At that time, the Department of Agriculture initiated a bulk fuel capacity, basically identify how much we had in bulk fuel. At that point, we had approximately 2 to 3 days of regular gas and 1 day of premium. At that point, it was not determined to be a high risk that the power would be out long term, and we did not initiate action. On the 9th of January, Thursday at 10:30, we were notified that the power would be out for an extended period of time, with the earliest return of power predicted to be Sunday, the 12th. This is approximately 3 days, well beyond the bulk fuel capacity we knew we had in the valley. At that point, we initiated action between the Department of Agriculture, the Governor's Office of Energy, the Division of Emergency Management, and the Governor's Office. We reviewed the Southern California earthquake reference material, which was the greatest source we had at the time to predict what kind of consequences we would see for a long-term fuel outage in Southern Nevada. Our biggest concern was, how do we message transparently and factually without inducing a panic buying of gas, which we've seen several times in the past over the last 2 years. We went ahead and re-verified bulk fuel quantities, and we started a draft declaration in the event that the governor determined that was necessary. At approximately 1300 on that day, we briefed the governor. Between 1300 and 1330, we had a conversation with Cal OES. Cal OES engaged with the California Governor's Office, and both those entities engaged with Southern California Edison to assist us in returning power to the Colton facility. Our first interaction with the county occurred at 1330, and that was a joint state and county discussion about the implications. We discussed draft declarations and communications. We continue to meet regularly with the county at 1500, 1700, and 1900. The first set of messaging, which was led by the county and amplified by the state to ensure that we had holistic and synchronized messaging, started at approximately 1500. At approximately 1830, we were notified by Cal OES that they had reached an agreement with SoCal Edison that they would provide mitigation efforts at the Colton facility, and power would be restored at some point over the night. Power was restored at approximately 0230 on the 10th, and fuel started flowing into the Las Vegas Valley sometime in the mid-morning period on the 10th. The lessons learned from the division's perspective, that synchronized, timely, and transparent messaging matters. Ensuring that the messaging between the county and the state does not conflict with each other and is timely matters tremendously. We also identified that pre-scripting declarations related to energy emergencies and the possible waivers is an essential item, and that is now in place. As far as strategic implications, California has reached out to the Army Corps of Engineers to look at redundant power for the Colton facility. We did offer from the state of Nevada both fire strike teams and security strike teams to support retaining power at the Colton facility. Both of those were not accepted by California. They provided the resources to ensure the continuity of power at the facility and keep fuel flowing. Also, a strategic opportunity, probably super long term, would be looking at strategic reserve fuels for the state of Nevada. At this point, sir, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Samuels for additional input and lessons learned.
All right, thanks, Chief Compton. I'm going to do some other things that he might have touched on from our side. Let's start back, if we could, Governor. We'll start with the February 10th, 2023, where this happened 2 days prior to the Super Bowl 57 when we were all down in Phoenix. With that notification, that was a fault in the valves in the system, which required a mandatory shutdown. We did activate the Multi-Agency Coordination Center, and we notified all the valley-wide stakeholders, also with the Nevada Division of Emergency Management. Our initial meeting, we had management objectives that we had to accomplish. That was one, the safety of residents and visitors, public responders, and all affected in the interruption. Develop contingencies to continue the service of responders and critical infrastructure providers. Deliver timely and accurate information to the providers and the public. Develop short-term and long-term contingency plans with supply chain interruptions. But some of the control objectives that we have to have that are unforeseen are the contingency plans for the cascading effects and or any other incidents, including but not limited to the housing, the food, travel, stranded motorists, and work from school, home, or remote. So that was some of the issues that we were going to have with the 2023 side. We knew the 2025 was going to be fairly similar as well. The after action topics that we had after the 2023 incident was the notification timeline from the source, which that's actually getting that messaging from that Colton power plant. Our continuity of operation plans with staffing, incident command structure, which Chief talked about the NIMS, which is why we do take those courses, 24/7 POCs, first responder and critical infrastructure, and along with the resorts. And where does this list live? The Multi-Agency Coordination Center had to have multiple operators, and then we also had a deconflict. This is the deconfliction with policy groups, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, mission-specific tasks, lead agencies and processing, and briefings. And should this incident occur, which this one did on the Phoenix time, is those concurrent events that affects visitor impacts. That is Formula, like that time it could be Formula One, Super Bowl, EDC. Another list of our contingencies is the transportation component, which we did notify the Regional Transportation Commission, and their fleet switched more to the CNG vehicles versus the diesel. We did have Department of Aviation on the line, and I'll get to that and some of our takeaways from the 2025. Some of the suppliers that we were looking at on how we can get more fuel into the Las Vegas Valley. We were looking at the Union Pacific Railroad. We're also looking at truckers bringing it in. The Union Pacific's a little bit challenging due to the fact that they don't have racks that they can actually just drop off their bulk of fuel. So that is where an issue is. Like Colonel or Chief Compton replied upon on the January 9th, 2025 issue when Clark County was notified. We did have a joint coordination call with stakeholders from Clark County leadership, all the incorporated cities, LVMPD, all the fire departments, Nevada Division of Emergency Management, really just get that sit-stat and intel gathering. For those that aren't aware, the reason this all came across was it wasn't the fires that were down in Southern California, it was that weather. And what they were experiencing down there, we do the same thing here in the state of Nevada. We call them PSOMs. That's that public safety outage management, where anytime the winds get too long, too fast, whether it's too dry and whether we don't have enough moisture on the ground, the power companies will shut the systems down, or they can even shut them down in grids, which is beneficial to the fact where we don't start those wildfires. However, in our incidents, it definitely affects the way we're going to operate down here in Southern Nevada. During the initial call, a priority list was established, and this was to notify all the law enforcement, the fire departments, and the ambulance companies to go fill up their units. Our second call was notifications went to hospitals, public works, and all our utility companies. Our third call was that holding message that Chief Compton just talked about that was created by the Joint Information Center, and it was in joint efforts, which was nice with Clark County, LVMPD, and along with Nevada Division of Emergency Management. And then this is where we get to that notification of the general public, where this is always going to be challenging for all of us. There's always going to be pushback. The messaging is going to change somewhat or another. And again, we do our best, but we know it's not going to be foolproof every single time. We do appreciate the fact that Nevada Division of Emergency Management worked with Cal OES for those workaround sources, the fire watch, the generators, but that is something that we need to keep in mind on. For this group's information, 1 day of shutdown of fuel coming from CalNev. CalNev, it's called that because it originates in California and it terminates in Nevada. That's the CalNev pipeline. Every 1 day that it is shut down, it takes about 5 days for actually to get back to our replenishing supply of our normal operation. We do have another line coming into the Clark County Valley, and that's the UNIP. That's that Utah Nevada line. However, that line produces about 10 to 15% of the fuel that we have in our valley, and it takes up to 24 to 36 hours to increase that supply coming through. And that's dependent upon what we're going to have. We can't always expect that we're going to have truckers bring fuel in from Arizona because 50% of the Phoenix fuel that goes into them goes from that Colton facility as well. So there is an issue on what we're looking at. But our takeaways, we need a regional fuel disruption plan and mitigation. We're going to have the contractor come in. I've been working with Nevada Division of Emergency Management, trying to use some of the fundings, whether it comes from the HSGP, the Homeland Security Grant Program, or from the BRIC, the Building Resiliency Infrastructure Communities. We need to get a contractor to see what actually is our daily use value for normal operations, not counting when it's a high impact visitor region. Yes, a lot of people have MOUs with their suppliers. However, they don't always own that fuel. And other places might have better MOUs than what some of our private entities might have. We need to work with the Nevada Truckers Association, which NDEM did, which means their trucks are going to come in heavy. So they're not relying on fueling up their saddles when they're down here. They're just dropping off their fuel and going from there. We did have a talk with Director Vasiliadis over at DOA, and their airlines can also come in heavy to increase their fuel so they're not taking from their reserves that they have. We do need to increase our current storage. What that looks like, that's what that contractor needs to provide. Some of the incorporated cities don't have their own fuel yards, so that's an issue that those incorporated cities need to address as well. And the last thing, Governor, is who makes this final determination on who gets what? The declarations, whether it's going to be a state declaration, a local declaration, but obviously the governors, the Board of County Commissioners, the city councils, county manager, and when that is made, who enforces it? Immediate direction should obviously come from senior management to include the county manager. But again, that's going to be the governor's direction and what he or she would like to deal with. But other than that, sir, that's all I have to report. Now, if Director Kukachia has anything else to add.
No, sir, Chief. I think you and Brett handled it just fine. Thank you.
All right, do we have any questions from any members on this presentation? I'll kick it off. This is Governor Lombardo for the record. Hey, Chief Samuels, are you officially the chief now?
No, sir, we're still waiting for ratification from the Board of County Commission, which I believe is supposed to be on the 18th of this month.
Oh, good luck in that endeavor.
Thank you,
Careful
sir.
what you ask for.
Yes, sir.
Can you provide me some further clarification on the last item on the MOUs and local jurisdictions? And you said you're waiting for governor direction on that. Can you explain that again?
Yeah, yes, sir. When we look at determination, so if we look at our lines and who actually, what levels or tiers, who gets what fuel? Is there a priority lane? Does it go 1 through 3? Meaning, do first responders get first right of fuel? Is this direction going to relate to the county fuel plan, or is this going to be direction from the governor's office? You know, when we view it, we think public safety first, and that should be law enforcement, fire, and ambulances first would be notified. And then if there's a priority in enforcing the fuel pumps, is that can be a governor's direction, go down to the police departments where you need to enforce this to where the general public isn't getting fuel. Not saying that has to be done, obviously, today, sir, but it's just something for all of us to think about where that direction is going to come from.
Yeah, but if not today, it may never happen. So I guess my direction would be to Brett, Chief Compton. I don't know if this is appropriate for the working group, but I would get on this as one of your marching orders moving forward to identify that MOU. So we don't go through the issues that we experienced under this particular issue. Also, Chief Samuels, under the UP, you said there's no racks at the fuel farm. Is that requirement of a build out of a spur for them? What are you saying?
So when we look at this is Billy Samuels, sir. When you look at the Union Pacific Railroad and they're going to drop off fuel, they don't have the racks to handle as much fuel as we're going to ask them to be dropping off. They do have facilities in place, but it's not like a normal rack that you have at some of our, like where the Kinder Morgan terminates, where UNEV originates or terminates as well, where trucks can come in and they can offload that fuel. So that was one of the things that we were looking at, how we can get fuel a little bit quicker, besides if we weren't going to have the fixed system in place versus trucks. Again, it seems like the Union Pacific Railroad would be one of our last options, and more for our trucks to come in, just increase that supply of truckers coming through. And it's really going to probably have to come through that Utah side.
Okay. And then a couple more questions. On the contractor, you said that it's going to evaluate the storage deficiencies. What authority does this contractor have? They've been hired just to identify our deficiencies? What is?
Sir, this is Billy Samuels. So what we were looking at is a contractor to come in to provide us information on a regional approach on how much fuel do we have, how long will it last, what is our daily consumptions, whether it's the fire side, the police department side, public works side. The Clark County, we know exactly how much we use on a normal day of operation. It doesn't always come from our fuel yard. Sometimes it comes from the private sector that will go fill up at Terrible's or AM/PM versus our own stored fixed systems that we have in place. That was that thought process. And then to make sure we are all working, does anyone have everything that they need to operate on a daily basis? And then if they need to look at their own plans, the LVMPD does a really good job when they come into their field disruption portion. They'll double up and turn their vehicles off. Us, we're a little bit different. Our engines take a lot of fuel, so do our ladder trucks. We would probably switch over to just sending our rescues out first on those medical calls. Again, identifying those needs that we have to keep the longer duration plans.
All right, because I know I've had intensive conversations with Chevron reference to increase in storage capacity out at the fuel farm there off of Losi or the Air Force Base. And I think that's probably one of our solutions outside of the capacity of the pipeline. So I would appreciate the contractor to explore that as an option.
Yes, sir.
And the last question on the Truckers Association, I think those conversations should be already had and made and actually put into probably a communications plan via them without having to go through this exercise every time we have an emergency. Can we ensure that takes place?
Yes, sir. And I'll Chief Compton handled that for us last time. And so I don't want to give him work, but that's what I asked the same again.
No, you can give it to him.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
sir.
Any other questions from any other members? All right, hearing none, we'll close agenda number 5 and move on to agenda item number 6, report on the avian influenza A virus, also known as H5N1 in Nevada. Director Gokachia.
Thank you, Governor. Director Goycochea. For the record, on December 3rd, 2024, we quarantined our first premise in Nevada and Southern Nevada in Nye County with H5N1 in dairy cows. We quarantined 25,000 head on that premise. That premise remains quarantined at this point. We're continuing to see bulk tank samples in that milk come back positive. So we've suspended testing on them for an additional 2 weeks. We are requiring 3 consecutive weeks of clean tests before we remove them from quarantine. That strain was what we call B313. That is the strain of H5N1 that has been circulating in dairy cows across the country since last February and March, when it originated in Texas and Kansas. Fast forward to the first part of January 6, 2025, we had a wastewater detection in Washoe County of H5N1. We chased that out and determined that the model dairy milk plant was in fact in that region that was drained by that wastewater plant. We had initiated silo testing, which is the big tanks that are at all our fluid milk plants earlier in the month. And so we did get a positive result on tanks at Quail Hollow, which is in Fallon, and also the model dairy plant in Reno on the 12th of January 2025. At that point, we determined there were 12 individual dairies that had provided milk into those 2 milk plants, and we started back testing on those to determine who was positive. Initially, we had 2 positive farms, both in Churchill County, and since then we have had 3 other presumptive positives from that time. The reason this is important, why I'm updating you today, we have discovered a new variant of H5N1. We are now dealing with what is called D11. This is not B313. D11 was initially detected in August of 2024 in the Pacific Flyway, also of our ducks and geese that use the Pacific Flyway when they migrate north and south. Since that time, it has spread to all flyways in the United States, but it has always stayed in the birds. It will make an escape to domestic poultry from time to time, and it is lethal in those cases, but it has never been detected in dairy cows until we found this detection in Churchill County earlier this month. At 1200 hours today, we did have a call with the National Association of State Animal Health Officials and the USDA. We did notify all of our state veterinary partners of the finding, as did the USDA. They are expecting to put a technical brief out as early as Thursday, but most likely on Friday. They are working with Health and Human Services and Center for Disease Control at the national level in order to get more scientific information on here. The reason this is important, there is some genetic sequencing in here that is leading us to believe that this may be more virulent across all mammals, including humans. To date, we have had 5 reported patients in Fallon, 2 of which had significant signs and symptoms of flu, high fever, cramps, etc. Those 2 refused treatment and refused testing due to citizenship concerns. We had 3 additional that have signs of conjunctivitis and some upper airway irritation today. 1 of those 3 did agree to testing. That sample has been sent to the state lab at University of Nevada, and we are awaiting results on that to see if that is there. Going forward, our needs are going to be for increased PPE. I've been working with Chief Constant significantly on this. Increased PPE for these dairy producers in the short term until they can ramp up, get some funding from the USDA to buy their own, predominantly gloves and eyewear for those workers. That seems to be the source of infection, the route of infection, for this virus at this time. We're going to need some increased surveillance. We're working with USDA, APHIS Wildlife Services on that. They have protocols that will not allow them to go on to an infected premise to do sampling of wildlife and other mammals that are on those. So we are hoping we can get a waiver from the USDA on that. We've got to get our wildlife service guys onto these infected premises so we know what other mammals may be affected. Additionally, we are taking continued efforts on abatement of European starlings. We did several large projects in December. We are out on the ground today doing counts of how many of these starlings are on our dairies in the Yerington area and obviously in the Fallon area. And we anticipate we will be taking more action on those. Again, trying to limit the amount of milk loss that these individuals are experiencing and to limit a vector of potential disease spread. At that time, I will rest served for any questions you guys may have.
Do we have any member questions? For the record, Governor Lombardo. Hey, JJ, I have a couple questions. One is you said the people didn't seek medical treatment because of their immigration status. I assume that was what you were alluding to. Is there any way we can get a public notice out there and make people aware that immigration would not be involved in any medical response?
Director Goycochea, for the record. Yes, absolutely, sure. And we have been working with Central Nevada Health District. They have the jurisdiction over this. And we have been pushing that messaging out through them to these farmers as well. We do have one premise that is refusing to comply with us and giving us a list of employees and phone numbers. I do have personal connections with that operator, and we are trying to bridge that gap between the health district and that operator, and again, alleviating their concerns. I think the other side of it is some of these guys are afraid if they do have this, they don't know what that's going to mean. So we did put press out on Friday, again, very low risk to humans, and our food supply is safe, et cetera. But we will continue that messaging. We are going to wait for the USDA technical brief to come out now before we put anything else out in the press to make sure we are in alignment with them.
Okay, the other question was the Department of Wildlife notice. Is there something we can help you with that on that, or are you handling that through Janae?
So we keep Janae in the loop, Director Janae over at Endow. When I'm talking about wildlife services, this is the branch of the Animal Health and Inspection Service under USDA. So these are our federal counterparts, and then also the trappers that the Department of Agriculture employs beneath them as well.
All right, thank you. Good work on all that, JJ. I appreciate all your effort.
Thank you, sir.
And then any assistance you can give us in pushing through the legislation on the free range notice issue. So,
yes, sir.
So we'll move on to, if there are no questions of Director Goycochea, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, report on Nevada fire suppression support to Southern California wildfires. Discussion only. And is Casey, are you on the line?
Yes, Governor.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Governor, and members of the committee for being here today.
Hey, Casey, hang on just a second. Lauren, just for the record, Sheriff McMahill is on the line now.
Sheriff McMahill, can you turn your mic on and publicly say you are here, please?
Yes, I am present. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Casey.
Okay, thank you for having me here today. Casey, the State Forester Fire Warden for the Nevada Division of Forestry. We did send support to the Southern California fires through multiple agreements. The Lake Tahoe Regional Fire Chiefs sent 2 strike teams and 1 task force of engines. Just for quick edification, a strike team is all like type engines. They're all type 1, type 2, type 3, and there's usually 5 of them in a strike team with a strike team leader. A task force is a conglomerate of multiple different kinds of engines, type 1, type 2, type 3. It might have a water tender, and there's usually 6 or more in that configuration. That was through a direct agreement with the Lake Tahoe Fire Chiefs and Cal OES. The Division of Emergency Management and the Division of Forestry worked together with, it ended up being the Division of Forestry's direct state agreement with Cal Fire. We sent 3 strike teams of local government engines and 1 task force. So all in all, we had about 40 engines and water tenders, about 200 staff. Just so everyone is aware, when we're considering what we're sending, we're also looking at home base first. So We weren't able to send everything that we probably could have sent because we're making sure that one, we're covering whatever jobs we're doing today. We had a prescribed fire going in the Tahoe Basin and other work at the time. So that is what we sent, and I'm really happy to report that our working relationship with the emergency management is working great. It wasn't just this response, but the one for Davis Fire. And all of these agreements are in place for ordering. One of the things we did learn, and we're going to work on, so we're able to send the local government fire chiefs through our Wildland Fire Protection agreements. And one of the things we learned in this deployment is we need to work with some of them to ensure that they're in our ordering system, that their qualifications have been crosswalked and they're in IROC. Because when you're deployed for a wildland fire, California checks to make sure that you have those quals and that they have the right hoses and nozzles and equipment to actually fight wildland fire. Just so you guys are aware, when California orders, they always order engines in strike teams or task forces. That's how they mobilize and utilize equipment. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Do we have any member questions of State Forester Casey? Hey, Casey, for the record, this is Governor Lombardo, and I don't know if it's better for you to provide the info or Brett Compston or even the Colonel. Can you talk about the resources provided by the National Guard?
Governor, this is Colonel Kyle Serfolio with the National Guard for the record. We provided our two MAFS airplanes for the fire. They didn't fly a lot. They each flew 2 sorties. About 6,000 gallons dropped each. They were there for about 2 weeks, and they came home on the 27th, I believe.
What is the reason for only doing 2 sorties?
I think because they brought they brought the 8 of the 9 MAFS things, and the California seemed like they had the California ones fly first, and then additionally, they have, before they can fly, they have to, all the civilian things have to fly first and be out before the MAFs can. So I don't know the exact reason why. Wind could have been a factor, but they did not fly a ton. Basically everyone except California flew to about 2 sorties.
Okay, additional question, Colonel, is there was a certain level of frustration that came out of different folks in the community on the delay response of the National Guard and the lack of understanding on how they have to reconfigure the aircraft. Can you walk us through that?
Right, so they have to totally reconfigure the aircraft to get them ready for MAFs, and because it's winter time, we've never activated them in the winter. So to be honest, the spring training starts in May, and that's when they start getting the planes ready and have them ready to fly. So just an anomaly that it's happening in the winter. So I think probably the whole MAFs probably has to relook at how they do things after this last fire.
Okay, yeah, just for the membership's awareness, Governor Lombardo, for the record, that they have a complete different mission for these aircraft than what they were doing in the fire suppression piece. So that's why the reconfiguration takes some time to happen. Thank you, Colonel. Appreciate it. Are there any other? Go ahead.
Casey, for the record, I just want to add too that that's one thing we're going to look at. MAFs come through for Nevada. The Nevada MAFs go through the national ordering system, so they can't go through the state-to-state agreement with California. We, NDF and the National Guard, don't have the MAFs on. So that's something we may look at, is putting them under the state-to-state agreement. Initially, we thought it would be best run through, and that does cause some delays because California has to order all the MAFs. Like, they have to go through theirs, they have to use all their Pressler bill resources, as Colonel Serfolio said, and then they have to go through the national ordering system, which also can cause delays. So we will look at our agreement with the National Guard and possibly including the MAFs in that agreement to mobilize them state to state a little faster.
And Casey, for everybody's awareness, can you tell us what MAFs means?
No. Colonel,
can you help
might be able to.
I think so. This is Colonel Serfolio for the record. Modular aerial firefighting system.
There you go. Perfect. I mean, good job pronouncing Kyle's name, Casey. All right, if there are no further questions, we'll close this agenda item and move on to agenda item number 8, report on the January 1, 2025 explosion at Trump Tower in Las Vegas, Nevada, discussion only. And Carrie, are you on the air?
I am, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, Carrie Underwood, Executive Director, Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center, for the record. I believe everybody's pretty familiar with the incident. A lot of it has been captured on open source, so I'm only going to briefly go over what happened. As per the instructions here, just want to focus on some of the lessons learned. January 1, 2025, 0840 hours. Public safety elements down here in Southern Nevada responded to a vehicle explosion outside the Trump Hotel in the Valet area. The vehicle explosion occurred 17 seconds after it stopped in the valet period. Clark County Fire Department was able to extinguish the fire. On scene, very short order, you had fire department, you had the local armor, Sebring response team, as well as federal, state, and local investigators with FBI, ATF, and the multi-agency team at the Counterterrorism Center. Hotel guests and staff were evacuated. Guests were accommodated at Resorts World. So our infrastructure partners kicked in to help out. The post-blast investigation occurred almost immediately once fire department determined that it was safe because everyone was on scene working together. Discovered the driver in the vehicle, later confirmed to be our suspect. We confirmed he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head per the coroner's office. 7 persons reported minor injuries. They were treated and released. Minimal structural damage to nearby structures, including the hotel. Our subject, Matthew Livelsberger, again in open source, was an active duty Special Forces non-commissioned officer assigned to 10th Special Forces Group in Germany. He was due to cycle back to Fort Carson, Colorado, which is where 2nd and 3rd Battalion 10th Special Forces Group is located. He was scheduled to return later in 2025, where his wife and child live. Let's get to the things that we learned. Number 1, collaboration efforts over the years to really build between the folks that are at the Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center and the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force was instrumental, not only in conducting investigative efforts here in Nevada and in other states, but also to provide verified information comparing our investigation results to the New Orleans investigation results to show that there was no identified link, even when the media was identifying potential links. Leveraging the FBI Infusion Center networks was critical in the investigation. We were able to get information from state, local, and federal partners in New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, very quickly, as well as getting Defense Department records that normally took a longer period of time to get things like DNA and dental records on the subject. So again, critical partnerships. Fire department, again, able to transition from rendering safe to post-blast investigation was seamless. In fact, I think our guys were pushing them to render it safe so they could get in there. That worked really well. The transparency process with providing details to the public. I think we learned a lot of those lessons in 1 October. We quickly provided only confirmed information to the public to help control the narrative, counter conspiracy theories, and they kept it limited to individuals who were providing investigative updates. The national media has highlighted the comparison between ours and New Orleans and clearly found that ours was just handled much better. The FBI even had to send somebody down to New Orleans to kind of rectify their initial briefing. So I think the fact we got off to the right start in the beginning certainly helped that process. Getting ATF experts, critical, and not just your ATF folks that you work with every day, but having the experts on these types of blasts come in actually provided significant and clear explanations as to what happened and why it happened the way that it did. Explaining complicated topics like deflagration versus detonation, deflagration being a slower burn, and why the materials that he had in the Tesla truck detonated or exploded the way they did, as opposed to a different chemical reaction if he would have initiated the blast differently, using a different firearm, for instance, requiring a different velocity of round to result in a different chemical reaction of the same materials. And that's why they explain the fireworks acted the way that they were. The ability to explain those things in layman's terms to people who are not explosives expert, very, very important. The one thing we would do better, I think, is get them out here faster. There was about, I would say, if you have a blast of this nature, you get them out right away. Engaging industry experts, critical. Having Tesla on scene to get actual information to support evidence recovery and to verify information and to debunk some of the myths that were out there about exactly what is and isn't captured data-wise, critical. The video cameras around the city provided evidence value that allowed us to know that the subject was by himself, to know that he actually was driving the vehicle, and you could even freeze frame where the muzzle blast. So again, all those partnerships critical. Forensics camera with IR capability, ability to see the tattoos that are under the burns to compare to openly available pictures. Again, just some of those technology things. Some areas of consideration where we definitely need to look into how we will accommodate future challenges. Wanting to clear the scene as quickly as possible, obviously to get back to business and doing some of those things versus evidence recovery. There were a few evidence recovery challenges with the desire, obviously, to clear that valet. And when I say clear it, meaning move the remnants of the vehicle, hose down the situation where there were items that we would have probably done a little bit more evidence recovery, but it would have required keeping that scene static, which obviously just that balance. I would say a complication when the subjects involved in your incident are highly cleared personnel is an interesting challenge we're going to have to figure out. And I say that because in your evidence recovery could potentially be resulting in a law enforcement CGIS system now containing sensitive national security information, creates an interesting challenge as to the balance between those two things. They don't want that type of data on your system, but you also don't want to have evidence that you're recovering deleted off a system. So those are the conversations we're having with our federal partners and with DoD. Video recovery, understand we have to do definitely work with our critical infrastructure partners so that they understand from an evidence recovery standpoint that you really need every piece of video available regarding the incident, even if they're redundant. So there were instances in the early going where, yes, we saw what was going on, but later we recovered redundant camera angles of things that showed just some minute detail that was critical in understanding what happened. We have to do a public education for our law enforcement about what Turo is. Because, for instance, the very early going Turo rentals is something that's new for people maybe in our generation, very, very popular and gaining popularity. These are privately owned vehicles that are rented through this online application. So when we first started looking at the vehicle owner information, we were looking at the vehicle owner, and it took a little time to verify that it was actually rented out to our subject. So just one of those things we got to look into. This is another example of the importance of the mental health problem leading to mobilization for violence. DoD has shared that our subject had some documented mental health issues in addition to some other grievances. And so once again, that has led to an act of violence or destruction. A new one for everybody here is it's the first known instance we have of AI being used by the individual to do his pre-operational collection of information. Our subject used ChatGPT to do things like calculate explosive quantities, research what materials to purchase and what ignition requirements would be needed for different types of things. And right now, the Colorado Fusion Center, ours, and the FBI are working on producing a joint intelligence bulletin on that topic for everybody. So we probably, again, another thing to discuss how we're going to monitor, regulate AI, because for those of us old school terrorism, we were worried about people having manuals, the how-to stuff, the Inspire magazines. This individual was able to get around the very surface level ChatGPT safeguards to do his pre-operational information gathering. And then lastly, fire may bring up at some point, obviously, the probably likely future problem of putting out EV vehicle fires. They were able to use that tarp to be able to put that, and it was definitely effective to suppress that fire. So those are the areas of interest to look at how we can do future problems. That's what I have, unless you have any questions, Kevin or Commission.
Do any members have any questions of Director Underwood? Hey, Carrie, just real quick, is this an FOUO presentation you just made? Is it
Yes,
classified?
yes, sir. I kept all the law enforcement sensitive or those things out of this presentation.
Okay, either way, I would appreciate if the members on the panel keep it sequestered, the information you just received sequestered. It's nothing for entertainment value amongst friends. So it's important for us to adhere to that. Chief Samuels, if you're still on the line, is there anything you want to add to this presentation?
No, sir. Like Director Underwood stated, the collaboration that we always have together in our valley is what makes it amazing. Whether it's Las Vegas Fire and Rescue and Clark County Fire or Metro and Highway Patrol, they all do an amazing job. The blankets are a game changer for us. We were very fortunate that the batteries weren't the source of ignition on this. If that was, that could have looked a little bit different for the incident itself. One thing that we always have to look at when you do have these lithium-ion battery fires is that watershed going into our system, notifying the appropriate people, whether it's EPA. Again, great efforts by all. Metro did an amazing job, and I agree that Render Safe was pretty quick. But no, nothing else to add, sir. Thank you.
So on a larger level, Governor Lombardo, for the record, Billy, reference these lithium fires. As you know, we experienced two 18-wheeler issues here late last year. And there was a lot of questions to be asked on how we suppress those fires. So is the fire community actively providing information on the best way to address these issues?
Yes, sir, we are. Obviously, it's going to be situational dependent. If it's going to be just a vehicle fire in a house, we try to pull those out. If it's going to be an 18-wheeler, are we able to still have routes of traffic? If it's one of those Connex shipping containers, it's going to be totally different. If it's those solar farms that we have in the rural areas, we're probably just going to let them burn. Again, it really just depends on the plume models, the exposures, and how we're going to handle them until we get research and design to say what is the best foam to mitigate those efforts. Water is not going to do it, as we all know, unless if it's truly in the batteries and there's that thermal runaway. Again, Governor, very challenging. We've been doing lithium symposiums with all fire departments in the valleys, with Northern Nevada partners as well. Just challenging, but I'm sure it was challenging years ago when gasoline and diesel came out. So we just got to get caught up to it, sir.
All right, well, this will be my ask of you. One is to ensure that you're reaching out to Redwood Materials here in Northern Nevada, since they are the expert on lithium mitigation. Because my understanding, they have a chemical compound that is considered best practice on addressing these fires. And maybe we could put that into the training and the awareness for all of the fire suppression folks in the state of Nevada. And then you mentioned Southern Nevada to include some Northern Nevada entities, but I think first responders across the board need to be made aware of all these issues, including law enforcement, medical, everybody. So how to best address these, the approach distances, everything else that goes along with it.
Yes, sir, Billy Samuels. We'll take care of that on the fire side, and also not just limited to Clark County, but also Nye County and Lincoln as they're bordering us. We make sure we do have those collaboration efforts.
Okay, yeah, but we need a bigger effort than just those adjoining ones because it's a statewide effort. So I'll allow Brett Compton to coordinate that with you so we can make sure that everybody's aware. So,
Hey, Governor, it's Sheriff Kevin McMahill. Billy, I was just made aware yesterday that one of the challenges that we had at the Trump was, as that was burning and everybody thought it was a electric battery that was burning, that those things give off a very toxic gas. And so we had, I forgot, sodium something or another is what they told me yesterday. And I don't think we've even trained our police officers in regards to that particular gas. And so I agree with the governor. We need to look at it not just from the suppression perspective, but really from how are we limiting our first responders that are going out on these things? Because oftentimes we'll have police or medical first to arrive on these things, and it's a silent killer is what they're basically explaining to me. And so I'm sure everybody across the state would need some sort of education piece on specifically the types of fumes that are coming off of those.
Yes, sir, Billy Samuels. We'll get a one pager for all responders, law enforcement, ambulance and fire. And then we were doing air monitoring that day. Unfortunately, like I said, the batteries weren't affected, so we didn't have it then. But if we're on scene, we're obviously can do the monitoring. But I will get you a one sheet and a one pager, sir.
Yeah, thanks. And Carrie, maybe you could work with, again, Kevin McMahill. Carrie, if you could work with Brett Compton on this, maybe we get out through the Fusion Center network out to all of those different people in the state.
Carrie Underwood, for the record, yes, sir, I was thinking the same thing. I'll get with the NTAC director, and we have a Clark County Fire Department captain assigned to our center, have that person work with the analytical team to put something together.
Thank you.
And I also want to make note that, Lombardo, for the record, that Director Underwood said that the fire department had a really quick response and allowed the law enforcement to get on scene sooner than later. That's never occurred before.
Sir, Billy Samuels, new times.
All right. Any other member questions of Director Underwood? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for that information. We'll close agenda item number 8, move on to agenda item number 9, second opportunity for public comment. Do we have any public comment there at EMS?
No public comment at DEM, sir.
Or DEM. I said EMS. DEM. No public comment. Do we have anybody on the panel reference public comment? Any members wishing to make public comment? I do. This is Governor Lombardo. For the record, this is one in a very long time of Homeland Security Commission meetings that was very informational. And I appreciate everybody's efforts and all these emergency responses. I think the communication or lack of communications we have experienced in years past have changed significantly. And we're moving forward as an emergency management community. So I appreciate everybody's efforts. Is there anybody on the phone? Lauren?
Lauren Borst, for the record, no, sir, there is not.
All right, seems like we gave sufficient enough time for you two. I will close the second opportunity for public comment and seek a motion for approval on adjournment.
Motion to approve.
Who was that?
Motion to approve. Patty Wade.
Thank you, Patty. Do I have a second? Governor Lombardo will make the second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against signify by saying nay. Or you're too embarrassed to say nay. And thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Motion passes. We'll see you on the next